feel like a fraud.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods is a very okay film. It's the sequel to 2019 Shazam, which was a very enjoyable and fun superhero movie that had a good balance of charm and seriousness that made it one of the better superhero films out there. This newest film attempts to emulate some of that, and for me it did not quite capture the same experience I got out of the first one. For one thing, the story is very generic, and there isn't that much in terms of character development outside of standard movie trope after standard movie trope. There's not really a consistent through line with any of the themes. A lot of the plot is built on very convenient things happening all the time. Some of these I can ignore because they worked as a joke or the film was self-aware enough to excuse it, but the majority of the time it didn't really work. For instance, one of the villains has the ability to take away the Shazam powers using lightning from a staff, and every single fight I was like, just spam that attack over and over again, but they don't until the plot needs them to. At one point, one of the Shazam family gets their powers back by touching the staff, and later there's a few people who don't have their powers because they got zapped by the staff, and Billy has the staff, but doesn't give them back their powers, even though it would help them with the fight. The film is essentially a very long sequence of events happening because characters did something only to progress the plot, and that made it quite frustrating from a story standpoint, and I couldn't really get into the film beyond what comedy was presented. And to be fair, there are some funny jokes. I did laugh quite a bit throughout. Mostly in the middle of the film, the ending kind of lost me a little, and the beginning, especially the first 10 minutes, is very shit. None of the comedy worked for me there. You could have started the film maybe at the 15-minute mark, and I don't think you would have lost anything. And that's not to complain about the runtime. I never felt bored watching this film. It did seem to be really well paced. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it didn't feel like it at all. Another thing this film kind of suffers from is its large cast of characters and having to keep track of everyone's stories all the time, which ultimately ends up being a bunch of half-thought-out ideas that don't really get any development. Besides their comedic chemistry, the characters don't bounce off each other well narratively, and they take up way too much screen time for their input into the movie. I wish they spent more time developing the main characters instead of this scattershot approach with everyone. It would have improved the film. Shout out to Helen Mirren, her acting was really good. It elevated her character and made her one of the more memorable parts of the film. Also shout out to Rachel Zegler, whose character was pretty annoying throughout the entire movie. Her presence was very distracting. She's meant to be playing this 6,000-year-old character, and she looks and acts like a 20-year-old, and standing next to Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, who are meant to be playing her sisters, I don't really buy she's an ancient being. I don't know why you couldn't have just gotten another older actress. It would have made her relationship with Freddy funnier, in my opinion. She's also a 6,000-year-old being getting into a romantic relationship with a teenager that is just turning 18, and it feels a little weird. Does anybody else think this is a little creepy? I think what they were going for is that, she looks like a teenager, so haha, it's funny, but it just doesn't really work knowing how old she is and who she's supposed to be. So kind of a miss there, you may want to rework that. Like the first Shazam, there are a few monsters throughout the movie, and the creature designs and practical effects were really cool and great. There's one in particular that relies a lot on CGI, and for once it doesn't look rushed or cheap. What I really appreciate about this film is that the CGI didn't make me want to tear my eyes out like pretty much every other superhero movie these days. A lot of the green screens are still very bad and cheap, but there's an unusually high amount of VFX that is actually good for once. It's just a bit sad that it's been so long since a superhero movie had some good CGI in it. At least the VFX team here managed to CGI someone's head onto someone else and make it look convincing. The music's painfully generic, it's very forgettable and took me out a lot. It's on the level of genericism as the A Dumb Project. Very uninspired, I hated it a lot. This film does have some conceptually great moments that work really well on screen. The horror side of David F. Sandberg does have its moments in this film. It's clear that he's putting in a lot of effort into this. He definitely cares about what he's showing you. There are some nice haunting shots and imagery that I really appreciate. There's one really cool shot of a CGI monster in a cave. It just feels very ethereal and otherworldly. That's a shot I still remember, but besides some of the comedy and visual effects, I didn't really connect with it as much as the first Shazam. It didn't quite capture the same spirit or energy or charm. It feels very much like a downgrade sequel. Check it out if you want. I'm probably not gonna see this one again. This film doesn't really justify itself as a sequel. I don't think it needed to be made. If you just need to kill a couple of hours, then it's not the worst thing you could go watch. It gets a 5 out of 10.